kid, Vince liked playing video games and he liked cars. A lot of the games that he remembers playing that he liked a lot were Monster Jam, Excite Trucks, and Mario Kart on Nintendo DS and Wii. He didn't realize it a lot as a kid, but as he's grown older, he's realized that games like this sparked a lifelong love and interest for cars. And a lot of us can relate like that. I remember playing Need for Speed all the time on the computer, and back then there were cars like the 98 Trans Am and Camaro SS and Corvette C5 and a lot of really neat cars in video games. The Cobra R did make a debut in some of the games I had, and so I can relate to that, and I think some of us really enjoyed playing video games and getting into cars, and that really helps spark an interest. I mean, who doesn't like playing a video game where you get to drive a car? I remember playing in the arcade games when I was younger at the bowling alley. They had Cruisin' USA, and you could drive a Ferrari Testarossa, and it was so cool to have a steering wheel and everything. So I can relate to him and how he really enjoyed playing video games, and it sparked an interest in cars. And even on that subject, I had a friend message me on Instagram, and he showed me that he created my Cobra Mustang in Forza 5. This looks very realistic. This is my Cobra, even with the exact license plate and everything. And he had gone through and customized it. And I can only imagine what kids are going to grow up being able to do in these next few years when they have something this good with graphics this good where you can create cool cars and a variety too. You're not just limited. Here's my twin brother's Mustang Cobra that he also created with his license plate and everything. So pretty fun. You can have a lot of fun playing video games and stuff. So I just wanted to include that as I'm thinking about all this and going over this part of the story. So going back to Vince, his parents were car enthusiasts, and his father raised him to like JDM cars. And so that's Japanese domestic market, or cars that are exclusively made in Japan. And those are very nice vehicles. They're very well engineered, and they last a very long time. They're very reliable. They're great cars, and Japanese cars have always been known for that, especially in the last several decades. I have enjoyed a JDM car myself. I enjoyed my 2001 Lexus IS300 that was made in Japan, and it was a very well-built car, and I enjoyed a little bit of that as well. I didn't get into the culture like the Fast and the Furious movies and stuff like that, but when people say they really like Hondas and they appreciate Toyotas and cars that are made in Japan, I can understand where they're coming from. And so Vince dreamt of owning a FK8 Civic Type R, and he still really likes that car, and he would like to have one. But at the time, he was still in middle school and high school, and so he wasn't able to afford one of those yet. But he continued to get into cars, and he also got into taking pictures of cars, and he had an artistic eye that he developed for things that were cosmetically pleasing to the eye. So he loved going out and taking cool pictures and stuff. So when he was learning to drive, he got to practice on a silver 2004 Honda Civic sedan that was gifted to his dad by his grandparents. Although it was a pretty basic Honda, he was able to work on it, and they even swapped a VTEC head from an EX onto it. They put a fat cam in it and had a Spec D exhaust on the car. They put some Enkei wheels on it and a new paint job. And so it was a unique car, and they had a lot of fun with it. It also got him started on modding cars and seeing what that was all about. So that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, when he was 18, things became pretty toxic between him and his father, and he ended up having to cut him out of his life. And so with that, he lost access to the Honda Civic, and he was forced to buy his own car since he needed to commute to work. So in February 2022, he bought his first car with all the money that he had saved up working in a restaurant. The car was a mineral gray 2001 Ford Mustang V6 automatic. It had 116,000 miles on it, and when he bought it, it was bone stock. The car was a single owner car before him, so that seemed pretty clean. He remembered being extremely nervous when going and visiting the used car lot, where it was being sold. Fortunately, he had his brother and his grandfather with him to be able to help through the process in purchasing the Mustang. He was going back and forth with wondering, do I really want to buy this car? He didn't know much about Mustangs, and he made the decision to go ahead and buy it. He paid a total of $8,000 for the car. This included the dealer taxes, the price of the car, which was listed at $6,900. And looking back, this was way, way, way too much, in his own words, is what he said, for an automatic V6. He should have bought a pristine GT for that money, but he didn't know any better. And he wasn't really a Mustang fan at the time, so he didn't really know much about them or the values or anything. But all he knew was he really liked this Mustang and he needed a car. I remember when I was looking at a mineral gray Mustang V6 exactly like that, only it had the beige stripe on the bottom. And that was at the Ford dealership and it was brand new. I rode my bike to the Ford dealer to look at it, and I remember how cool that was, and I really liked that color. It was kind of a newer color at the time, and so that's a really cool car. And so I need to stop and just give that car a little bit of love and credit for being such a neat car. And I remember really wanting a car like that at the time, and they were brand new when I looked at them, so they were way out of my price range. And in 2003, I was very lucky to rent a brand new '03 V6 Mustang that only had 400 miles on it with my mom and my brother and sister when we flew back to Chicago to go get my first V6 Mustang. And I really liked this car. I didn't want to let it go. Another thing I think a lot about as I look at these pictures is how my V6 came with the 3-spoke 15-inch wheels, and the later 99 to '04 V6 Mustangs had the options for the bigger 16-inch 5-spoke wheels like we see on Vince's car, and I really liked those wheels a lot better than the 3-spokes, so even that was a cool upgrade. Vince believes that the cars were pretty expensive during this era because of the chip shortage, and he remembers seeing used cars being inflated, doubled the price. Used cars, new cars, private or dealer, didn't really matter. All the prices were bad. He remembered looking at a '08 Volkswagen Rabbit and a 2003 Honda Accord, but they were still $5,000 to $6,000 with very high mileage on them. He almost bought an '08 Mustang V6, but everyone wanted $10,000 or more for the S197s, so he didn't think that was worth it. And that's why he settled with the New Edge Mustang V6. He wanted something cool, different, and something awesome. So he was glad he still made the decision to buy the car, even though he felt like it was overpriced. But he felt instant Americana vibes when he sat in the car and checked out the interior. When you look at the interiors of these Mustangs, they really do look like the old muscle cars, and they are modeled after them. He said it felt like he was in an old Corvette, and I can see why. The Corvette has the dual cowl looking interior, and that's similar to the '69 Mustang, and the newer Mustangs you can see have a very retro similar design there. And so he really enjoyed the way the car looked, and he liked the gauges, the size of the gauges, the font, everything looked like an old muscle car. So he recalls these first impressions, and he wasn't very happy that the seats had some big tears in them, and there was a piece of the plastic vent that was broken, and things like that, but he got past it pretty easily. What he remembers most about the car was the smell. It smelled of rich leather. And so when you get in the car, you can always get that smell, and it brings back some memories, and it's something that I also recognize when I sit in the different Mustangs I own. And so it gives some flashbacks to when he bought the car, happy memories. The car even had like a big yellow happy smiley face sticker on the front windshield, kind of things like that he remembers about it when he bought it, and it was kind of fun. And he drove with that for a short little while before he took it off. I know it's difficult to see in this grainy old Craigslist ad screenshot of my Bullet, but it had a smiley face on the front bumper on that license plate thing, so that's what that reminds me of. My Bullet had something similar. It wasn't there when I bought the car, so I never kept it. But the Mustang was completely different than the Honda Civic. It was a little heavier, it handled differently, it had slightly more power, but he was used to 130 horsepower in a Civic that weighed 2,500 pounds, and the Mustang weighs 3,200 pounds. So for the little difference of the 190 horsepower V6 Mustang, There was really not a whole lot of gain for the power versus the weight that the car had gained compared to what he was used to. So it was okay though, and he enjoyed driving it in stock form for a little while. He remembers driving down the road and looking out the window and seeing the shadow and silhouette of the Mustang, and it gave a pretty cool look, and the shape of the Mustang on the road there with the shadow. And I've done that too. I think we all have. We really enjoy getting those little moments where you can see you're in something kind of cool. And so that's when he really started to love the new Edge, and especially the exterior design. Speaking of the exterior, he noticed that it had a ton of dents on the body from the previous owner. And it was apparently an old guy who owned the car. And he says, you know how old people are, they like to bump into everything with their cars. And so, because of that, he decided to name his Mustang DentStang. So Vince said, this is when I discovered the Justin SVT YouTube channel. He said, I binge watched everything I could, my favorites at the time being the Mach 1 and Bullet Things You Didn't Know videos. And he started to have an eye for the New Edge Mustangs. He said, I seriously love your videos to this day, Justin, and thank you for the vast knowledge and lore behind the New Edges. My favorite videos now are the hour-long Mustang updates. I love the Mach 1s and Bullet the most. Anyway, I learned something new every day from you and was super inspired at the time to start modifying my own car because of you. That means a lot to me. I really, really appreciate that. My twin brother, Danny Johnson, and I were driving in my blue Mach 1 today. And I brought up this story. I told him I'm editing this film and I'm getting into all the details about it. And I told him about that section of the story. And we were both very grateful for that. And we both talked about how wonderful it is to meet great people who love and enjoy this passion and this hobby with us, and the respect and gratitude that we get from people who enjoy the content we make, and that has more value to us than 85 million subscribers and people who are making a lot of money on YouTube and becoming super famous. We are interested in the people who really care, and we really, really love the few people who are very adamant about these cars and watch our videos and get to enjoy this with us. We'd rather have a few great subscribers than millions of people who are moderate and don't really care. So thank you, Vince. I really appreciate that. I'm grateful for the nice words you said and all the respect that you have for this passion that we all enjoy together. I really appreciate that. So as Vince was continuing to get into these Mustangs, he started to notice them in more places. I think we all do that. If you talk to somebody about a certain type of car and it's on your mind, you'll start seeing it places because you'll start noticing it. So as he was looking around at New Edge cars and noticing them more, he got some pretty cool pictures. This is a very nice black Mach 1 Mustang that he had come across. And at the Laguna Seca Cars and Coffee, he found this Mistachrome Terminator Cobra, and he was able to take some really nice pictures of it. This is pretty cool to see. It looks like a pretty nice, rather stock 04 Mistachrome Terminator Cobra. You can see the engine bay, a little bit dirty, but stock pulley, nothing really done to it. And here it is at a Cars and Coffee event. And it's really fun when I get to see things like this that people send me from all over the place. They have eyes out, everywhere, and they tell me about things. This is a 10th anniversary Terminator that was a lot like my car. And so it's really cool to see another 10th anniversary Terminator Cobra out there, just out in the wild, where he saw it in a Costco parking lot. And it's got the 10th wheels on it, and I believe it had a Borla exhaust and everything like mine did, so it reminded me a lot of my car. Just nice, clean car in California. And here it is at the Santa Cruz Mustang Club in California. He said he actually saw the car in the Costco parking lot in Santa Cruz. And so, pretty cool to see that Cobra. And again, it's fun when people show me stuff like this that they come across, because you're not just going to see that, and it's fun when everybody all over the world can share these things. So now he started to modify the car. You can tell it doesn't have a rear spoiler, kind of like the Bullet look. And he also bought a set of nice American Muscle wheels. They're the Bullet style 17x9s. Originally, the car had some 16-inch wheels on them with, two 15s, two 25s in the back. And now with the 17 by 9s, it has 275 all around. The 275/40 R17, and he went with the Michelin Pilot Sport all-season tires. And I've had a set of those before too. They're a nice tire, and he says they're nice and they're a little pricey. But then he decided he wanted to put an exhaust on the car, and he decided to go ahead and get the Flowmaster Force 2 catback, since they sound deep and throaty and not loud and raspy like many V6 cars you might hear. I was curious to see how this catback was set up, because my 97 V6 and my brother's 97 V6 both had catbacks that we got from Celine when they had taken the stock GT catbacks off and put their own exhaust system on. We bought the surplus catbacks from Celine, and we just had them welded in. They were cut right after the catalytic converters, and they added straight pipe all the way back to the catback from a GT, so it was pretty cool. So we'll do a little before and after exhaust clip of what this car sounded like and what it sounds like now. So he was pretty happy with the way the exhaust sounded. As for exhaust goes, unfortunately he had to replace the passenger side exhaust manifold. It had cracked. Same with my nephew's New Edge Mustang V6. And so I guess that's kind of common on these. I've heard of it happening before. And then, so instead of just replacing it with a new one, he went ahead and got the BBK chrome shorty headers. And so overall, he thought it was a pretty modest sounding exhaust, and he thought it was pretty cool. So he started to do some more mods and put some Mustang letters in the back bumper and make it look a lot better, and just overall enjoyed the look of the car. He decided he wanted to add some striping to the car, some of the rocker panel ones and the hood stripe, and so he went ahead and prepped the car to do that and just start to make it his own. And that's what's really neat about Mustangs, is you can make them look how you want them to look, and you can see what other people have done, and you can get your own ideas and everything. So here's some of the vinyl stickers that the car received, and it's a nice hood stripe there, kind of like a 35th anniversary Mustang stripe. I think that looks really good on the car. And so he started to look at the way the car was and then kind of Photoshop and add what he thought looked good, spoiler, side stripes, stuff like that. He did get a LSB Customs rear carbon fiber wing. It cost him $550. And so that was a very nice spoiler, and he thought it brought the car together pretty well, and he could keep his third brake light and still get the duckbill style spoiler. The Celine spoilers are really cool, but I think they have their own little brake light integrated into it and stuff, and so this was kind of a cool option. Now he did get some GT style side scoops in mineral gray. They looked really good. The V6 ones are just kind of the half scoop, and there's the full scoop there, and that's really cool to see a good example. And this is what it looks like when it's off the car. But that's always a fun thing to do. Made the car look a lot better. So he started looking around, and he found these clear tail lights from USR Auto that he really liked. And he thought that they were just a really cool addition to the car. Something that I feel probably ties into more of his JDM love and everything, kind of integrating some of that into the car. And so I like that they have the look of the stock tail light there with the reflectors on them and everything. And so Vince even convinced his mom to buy a Mustang. So this is her 2013 V6 Mustang convertible. Pretty cool to see that, being involved in, a family of Mustangs. I know what that's like. And so when she bought the V6, it had decently low miles. It was at 99,000 miles. And it had some issues with the drivetrain clunking in first to second gear, upshifts. So hopefully that can be resolved sometime. He was enjoying the car, and he even got together with some other Mustang friends and had a good time and enjoyed driving the car around. And one day, sitting at a red light, this happened.
Oh, no way, dude. Oh, stop it. Oh. Oh, dude. That happened. 2840W3. Garmin, save video. Okay, Garmin.
Guys, watching that, even that caught me off guard. I was just watching it, and then you get rear-ended like that. What an awful thing. And the guy tried to run, and good for Vince. Man, he handled that so well. He pulled over, he tried to do what was right, the guy fled, he chased him and was able to call out his license plate to think that quickly, and then save the video on his Garmin device. So that was awesome. Unfortunately, look at the damage it did to his V6. He had been taking such good care of this car and modding it, enjoying it, loving it, and then someone comes along and just ruins it. Look what they did to it. It cosmetically doesn't seem like it's all that bad, but it's obviously got messed up a little bit here. But when you do the damage count, it's pretty expensive. It busted up his expensive wing, and he thinks the wing actually helped save some of the impact because it was so sturdy, but it started right up, and it actually drove right onto the flatbed without any problem. I'm actually surprised that the inertia fuel cutoff behind the taillight didn't pop. Maybe it did and they popped it back in. So basically what happened was he was on his way to work on June 11th, 2024. He was stopped at a light in the number 2 lane, minding his own business, when suddenly he gets rear-ended and injured. And the car was injured as well. What happened was a 2023 Tacoma had rear-ended him at about 30 to 40 miles an hour using no brakes. He has the entire video and context, and you can see and hear that the Toyota wasn't screeching to a halt or anything, just whacked him. And then the Tacoma tried to flee at a reckless speed, so eventually he pulled off the road, called 911. He reported the hit and run, but waited for over an hour for police to come assist him. And what was weird was, well, he was waiting for the police to come and assess his situation, and the same spot where he just was, a sedan making a right turn heading towards him, caused a bicyclist to T-bone them. And the bicyclist was in a bike lane, and the first responders and officers got over there and assisted them within 15 minutes, whereas now he has waited an hour to get helped, and he wasn't very happy about that. And interestingly enough, the officer who started his report didn't respond or complete the police report for 3 months. And so Vince had to complain about it online and go through a bunch of trouble, and until ultimately the officer who was assigned to his case got fired, and then they hired a new officer to come and take over the case. And the new officer was very nice and helpful, and it turns out that the Tacoma owner that hit and ran was a violent criminal with a lengthy history. So he was glad that he didn't chase him very long, and that he had that Garmin Mini 2, which recorded everything, and he was able to call out the plate and everything. But unfortunately, he was injured in the accident, and he still deals with some pain today, which is really sad. But he's glad he's okay, you know, to an extent. Still has to suffer pain, but he's okay, and that there weren't any pedestrians who got hurt or anything. And the guy could have even run over other people or caused even more accidents or trouble. But the car was damaged really bad, and it looked moderate, the damage on the outside. But when you have an accident like that and you start taking panels off and you see the underneath damage, and that is really difficult for body shops to work on, especially with all the panels for the quarter panel, the bumper support, and everything, where they all come together and they have welds. Even if they're bent and they're okay, the insurance company is not going to let that car go and be repaired, because it has to be perfect again. It has to have everything all done to it. So at that point, it was pretty obvious that the car was going to be totaled out. So the bumper was completely trashed. The unibody got bent inwards, and the rear driver's side got a crease in it, a little quarter panel damage. He does think that that rear spoiler, because it was carbon fiber and it was so strong, it helped save the Euro taillights from some of the impact, so he was able to keep those. And he was going to just throw the spoiler away, but then he reached out to a friend, Sonic Blue 1400, and he was able to get the spoiler for him. So now his Sonic Blue V6 has that, the Mad Clean V6 is what he calls it. And so now he drives around with that spoiler on it. So, that's kind of cool. So he did get the bad news that the insurance was going to total the car, but they told him that he had a choice to either let the insurance take the entire car and pay him out $7,000 to $8,000, or he could buy the car back for $800. And so he would receive $6,700. And so he was actually surprised at how much he was offered, and he legitimately thought that he wasn't going to get anything for the car because it was a V6. And Copart had estimated the car was worth about $6,500, and the damages were going to be $5,500. So that's obviously a totaled vehicle there. So he made the decision to go ahead and buy the car back. To him, the car was really valuable, and he has a hard time letting go of his cars. He's very sentimental, and I am too. I'm the same way. My brother and I are the same way. My brother's V6 was totaled. We were both riding in it. He was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and a girl who had her license for 10 days turned into the side of it and just completely T-boned his car. He got it back from the insurance, and he actually paid a shop to fix it. It was several $1,000s, but he did it. So, here, same thing. When somebody loves a vehicle and they're into it, and in this case, still drivable, still a good car, no damage to the wheels or anything. Like, it's still an okay car to drive around, just has some cosmetic damage, and some bumper support stuff probably does need to be addressed to be safe and everything. But basically, at this point, he decided to go ahead and just fix the car, but not pay a body shop to do it cosmetically. It was going to cost so much money, and structurally too, probably, to have a body shop do pulling and stuff and get it perfect. So what he did was he just went to a pick and pull, and he found a rear bumper from a dark shadow gray V6 Mustang. He said this car was clean inside and out, so that's too bad. So he got the new bumper there, and you can see it's a little darker gray and everything, but hey, it looks pretty good on the car. You can see that it lines up and everything, so most people wouldn't know. They would just think it's a different color. So now you can see it has a dark shadow gray rear bumper on it, and the car's mineral gray. So the color's off, but you know, it's better than yellow or white or blue or some other weird color. But it looks good, and he had actually decided to go ahead and leave the pick apart marking on the rear bumper because it tells a story. Now, I, of all people, can appreciate that because both my silver GT and my yellow GT were totaled when I got them, and I put them back together, and they have some unpainted parts under the hood that came from a Mach 1 and a Terminator, and it's pretty cool to see under there, and I think it tells the story really well, and it's a really neat, unique piece, so I've left mine that way too. So he was paid out for the accident, and he did what every irresponsible car enthusiast does. He went out and bought another Mustang. But this was his chance to buy a V8. He had searched for a while, and there were some V8 New Edge Mustangs he looked at, but they were all super taxed. They were pretty run down, and getting a clean manual V8 was pretty hard to find. Now, he really wanted to get a Mach 1, but they were too expensive for him at the time. At this point, he's still a full-time college student, and he was planning on buying one in the future. But as he looked around, he noticed that all the private sellers that had Mustang GTs in the area were asking about $8,000 to $9,000 starting. And then the dealerships that had them wanted 12 to 15. And he's like, for a GT, that is Mach 1 money. And values will continue to fluctuate as things go on and whatever, but basically it was pretty expensive to try to find a good GT. But eventually he found one, and he wanted a manual, but he settled for the more affordable 2000 Mustang GT. It was performance red, and it was automatic, and it was a convertible. But he bought the car from a guy about 3 hours away, and it needed some work. He really liked it though. The paint was almost flawless. I really love performance red. That's a bright red. I really like that color. But anyway, it was a good buy. The guy was asking $6,500. It came with the stock exhaust manifolds, high flow X pipe, the stock catback with welded in 40 series Flowmasters, and it sounded good. But he wanted Borla tax or SLP. So he noticed that the car had a few issues. It had some bad parasitic draw, and that it needed some maintenance. He felt like the maintenance was deferred from the previous owner. They did nothing for the car, and now it's all on the new guy who buys the car to fix everything that's wrong with it. But he was beyond stoked to have a V8, and so he wasn't too bothered. So he went on to daily drive this GT, and when he bought the GT, DentStang, the V6, couldn't legally be driven due to some title issues and registration uncertainty and some things that he had to go through with the car. So that car sat, but luckily he had this GT to drive around, and he was very excited. So now he has two Mustangs, and he's really enjoying the Performance Red Mustang GT. He swapped the taillights into it that he had kept from the other Mustang. And one of his favorite places to take the car was the Laguna Seca meet. So he was able to go ahead and take the car there, where he enjoyed being one of the few new edges that would show up. He said, "I was really happy with this car." And I really liked that part of the story, because when you're happy with what you have and you're excited to take it to a car meet and you're proud of it, then you know that you're really enjoying something. There are other nice cars at that meet, more expensive cars at the meet, but it's fun to pull up in something you have that you love and you enjoy. I like going to the cars and coffee meets around here sometimes. They used to host one at an exotic car dealership, so there were Ferraris and things all around, and I was always happy to have my Mach 1 there and just be proud to have it. So he drove the car a lot. He said he put about 13,000 miles on it in 8 months. So here's a little walk around underneath the car since he had access to the lift and everything. You can see how clean it is. Now, unfortunately, in late February 2025, he was driving to work one day after a fun Laguna Seca meet, and he noticed the expansion tank was getting super low after 72-mile drives. So, since he was concerned about it, he used his brother's test fluid kit to check if the head gasket was blown, and quickly realized that it was probably blown. Blue test fluid turned yellow in the little meter. So unfortunately, he feels like the engine's hurt. The car still runs and drives and everything. And at this point, with a 2-valve engine, you might as well just drive it around, because you can replace the entire engine out of a Crown Vic or a Grand Marquis, like I've done in the past. And so that whole engine can just be, used until it doesn't want to run anymore. But he's decided to go ahead and let the car sit. And so he feels a little bit gypped. He says he paid $6,500 for the car, only for the engine to give out on him. It also had tons of glitter in the oil every time he would change the oil. And some say that that's possibly the timing chain guides wearing and stuff like that, which does happen on the higher mileage engines. When those timing chains wear and the guides, they can punch through. The tensioners can punch right through the guides and stuff. That happened to my brother's GT. But anyway, he thinks that the car probably was abused, had a lot of high revving abuse with it, and that he thinks it's probably main bearings that are causing the metal in the oil. And there's kind of a little bit of a bottom end thumping, he thinks. So he's debating on getting a new engine for it, or just trying to rebuild it or fix it up. At the moment, he lives in an apartment, so he can't really work on it there, but he might be able to do it at his job as an auto tech, because he's starting his new job as an auto tech. And so hopefully that will be a place where he'll be able to use a lift and get in there and do that, and maybe even just do it in a weekend if he can just swap another engine in or something. But so he says, although making poor financial decisions like buying the red GT, in this case, that turned out to be kind of a poor financial decision in the end, keeping his V6 has been one of the best financial decisions he's ever made. So after the crash, he reverted the V6 back to stock, and he really doesn't like the look of it, but he's been trying to modify it again and get it back to how he likes seeing it. But the important thing is he's able to daily drive DentStang, and he loves that car. He said he eventually would like to give DentStang to his older brother and give it to him as a gift and a thank you for being a father figure in his life for the past few years. And he aspires to eventually get to the point where he can get a first-gen Coyote, like a 2014 S197, an 03 Mach 1, maybe Azure Blue or Comp Orange, which are kind of rare, or the 2018 Civic Type R, because he still likes the Hondas a lot. this has been a very interesting story where you have a nice V6 Mustang that was loved and taken care of and enjoyed, and then the aspiration of getting the V8 and buying the GT. And there's so much to the story about the V6 getting damaged to the point where it could have been crushed and thrown away, but he decided to save it. And then now that's really been a benefit to him, because when the GT's having problems, now he's back to using that V6 and it's never let him down. And the car never let him down even after the accident. And luckily the hit in the back wasn't anything that messed up the axles or anything that would make it so the car wasn't drivable, so he can continue just to drive it with a little bit of cosmetic difference in it now. But every Mustang has a really cool story behind it, and that's why I enjoy making these videos, and all my cars have their own stories, and I put their stories on my channel, and I'll share other stories like this too. And there's just a lot of people out there who appreciate watching these videos, and I appreciate the support on the channel and the friendships I make. And I get a lot of messages on Instagram where people say, hey, I really love watching your content, I love the stories, I love this and that, and they tell me about their cars. And so it's really fun. It's a great community, it's a great friendship opportunity. And so here's a cool story that I was able to dig deeper into. I've been following him on Instagram this whole time. I watched him when he had DentStang and when he got in the accident. I saw when he got the GT. I saw the head gasket issue. I felt bad because I've seen the whole thing evolve, and I watch a lot of people and their stories and the things they go through, their challenges, and also their strengths and advantages and their wins and stuff. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story. It's a really good example of how much care there is in a car. When you see someone's car out there and you watch it drive by, or you see it on their Instagram, you might not think much of it, but there is a big story behind every car, and this was a pretty good one. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for more Mustang content.